no fighting. No fighting, girls. No fighting. Everyone, I want you to say hi before we start our story. Yeah? I always get distracted when the dogs are here. But, so before we start our story, I would like to say hi to the girls. Bubba, can you say hi? Bubba, say hi to everyone. This is Biscuit. She's here. And Bubba, can you say hi, Bubba? Oh, yeah, Bubba. Look, say hi. Bubba. Tank, you want to say hi too? No growling. And here's Tank right here. We can't see her, but she's right here. If I move the camera, it'll stop recording. So you can just have to see her head a little bit, her nozzle. There we go. All right, baby. Anyway, let's start our story today, shall we? Christmas is coming in 2 weeks, and everyone around us is bustling and hustling with all kinds of errands, right? Whether it is getting ready for a present for your friends and family, here or abroad, everyone is busy running around. Today, I would like us to stop for a minute and reflect on Christmas. What is Christmas? The Christmas story is about love, forgiveness, and redemption. It is a story about a loving God who loves us so much that he sent us the most precious gift he has as a sacrifice to redeem a fallen creation he could not seem to let go. In return, we, his creation, seem to mirror that Christmas spirit from time to time. In Christ, especially at Christmas, man sometimes looks beyond his fallen nature, and embraces that which is godly. I wish to share with you one of my favorite Christmas stories. It is called Truce in the Forest. Truce in the Forest is a heartwarming Christmas Eve story by Fritz Windken. This was set during World War II amidst the chaos of war. Let us begin our story. Truce in the Forest by Fritz Windken. It was Christmas Eve, and the last desperate German offensive of World War II raged around our tiny cabin. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. When we heard the knock on our door that Christmas Eve in 1944, neither Mother nor I had the slightest inkling of the quiet miracle that lay in store for us. I was 12 then, and we were living in a small cottage in the Huetjen forest near the German-Belgian border. Father had stayed at the cottage on hunting weekends before the war, when Allied bombers partly destroyed our hometown of Aachen. He sent us to live there. He had been ordered into the Civil Defense Fire Guard in the border town of Monshaw, 4 miles away. "You'll be safe in the woods," he had told me. "Take care of Mother. Now you're the man of the family." But 9 days before Christmas, Field Marshal von Rundstedt had launched the last desperate German offensive of the war, and now, as I went to the door, the Battle of Bulge was raging all around us. We heard the incessant booming of field guns, planes soared continuously overhead. At night, searchlights stabbed through the darkness. Thousands of Allied and German soldiers were fighting and dying nearby. When that first knock came, Mother quickly blew out the candles. Then, as I went to answer it, she stepped ahead of me and pushed open the door. Outside, like phantoms against the snow-clad trees, stood 2 steel-helmeted men. One of them spoke to Mother in a language we did not understand, pointing to a third man lying in the snow. She realized before I did that these were American soldiers, enemies. Mother stood silent, motionless, her hand on my shoulder. They were armed and could have forced their entrance, yet they stood there and asked with their eyes. And the wounded man seemed more dead than alive. "Come, Ryan," Mother said finally. "Come in." The soldiers carried their comrade inside and stretched him out on my bed. None of them understood German. Mother tried French, and one of the soldiers could converse in that language. As Mother went to look after the wounded man, she said to me, "The fingers of those two are numb. Take off their jackets and boots and bring in a bucket of snow." Soon I was rubbing their blue feet with snow. We learned that the stocky, dark-haired fellow was Jim. His friend, tall and slender, was Robin. Harry, the wounded one, was now sleeping on my bed, his face as white as the snow outside. They lost their battalion and had wandered in the forest for 3 days, looking for the Americans hiding from the Germans. They hadn't shaved, but still, without their heavy coats, they looked merely like big boys, and that was the way Mother began to treat them. Now, Mother said to me, "Get Herman and bring 6 potatoes." This was a serious departure from our pre-Christmas plans. Herman was a plump rooster named after portly Hermann Goering, Hitler's number 2 man, for whom Mother had little affection, that we had been fattening for weeks in the hope that Father would be home for Christmas. But some hours before, when it was obvious that Father would not make it, Mother had decided that Herman should live a few more days in case Father could get home for New Year's. Now she had changed her mind again. Herman would serve an immediate, pressing purpose. While Jim and I helped with the cooking, Robin took care of Harry. He had a bullet through his upper leg and had almost bled to death. Mother tore a bed sheet into long strips for bandages. Soon, the tempting smell of roast chicken permeated our room. I was setting the table when once again there came a knock at the door. Expecting to find more lost Americans, I opened the door without hesitation. There stood 4 soldiers, wearing uniforms quite familiar to me after 5 years of war. They were Wehrmacht, Germans. I was paralyzed with fear. Although still a child, I knew the harsh law sheltering enemy soldiers constituted high treason. We could all be shot. Mother was frightened too. Her face was white. But she stepped outside and said quietly, "Fröhliche Weihnachten." The soldiers wished her Merry Christmas too. "We have lost our regiment and would like to wait for daylight," explained the corporal. "Can we rest here?" "Of course," Mother replied with a calmness born of panic. "You can also have a fine warm meal and eat till the pot is empty." The Germans smiled as they sniffed the aroma through the half-open door. "But," Mother added firmly, We have 3 other guests whom you may not consider friends." Now her voice was suddenly sterner than I'd ever heard it before. "This is Christmas Eve, and there will be no shooting here." "Who's inside?" the corporal demanded. "Americana?" Mother looked at each frost-chilled face. "Listen," she said slowly. "You could be my sons, and so could they in there. A boy with a gunshot wound, fighting for his life, and his 2 friends lost like you, and just as hungry and exhausted as you are. This one night," she turned to the corporal and raised her voice a little, "this Christmas night, let us forget about killing." The corporal stared at her. There were 2 or 3 endless seconds of silence. Then Mother put an end to indecision. "Enough talking," she ordered, and clapped her hands sharply. "Please put your weapons here on the wood pile and hurry up before the others eat the dinner." Dazedly, the 4 soldiers placed their arms on the pile of firewood just inside the door. 3 carbines, a light machine gun, and 2 bazookas. Meanwhile, Mother was speaking French rapidly to Jim. He said something in English, and to my amazement, I saw the American boys, too, turn their weapons over to Mother. Now, as the Germans and Americans tensely rubbed elbows in the small room, Mother was really on her mettle. Never losing her smile, she tried to find a seat for everyone. We had only 3 chairs, but Mother's bed was big, and on it she placed 2 of the newcomers side by side with Jim and Robin. Despite the strained atmosphere, Mother went right on preparing dinner. But Herman wasn't going to grow any bigger. And now there were 4 mouths to feed. "Quick," she whispered to me, "get more potatoes and some oats. These boys are hungry, and a starving man is an angry one." While foraging in the storage room, I heard Harry moan. When I returned, one of the Germans had put on his glasses to inspect the American's wound. "Do you belong to the medical corps?" Mother asked him. "No," he answered, "but I study medicine at Heidelberg until a few months ago." Thanks to the cold, he told the Americans in what sounded like fairly good English, Harry's wound hadn't become infected. "He is suffering from severe loss of blood," he explained to Mother. "What he needs is rest and nourishment." Relaxation was now beginning to replace suspicion. Even to me, all the soldiers looked very young as we sat together. Heinz and Willie, both from Cologne, were 16. Their German corporal, at 23, was the oldest one of them all. From his food bag, he drew out a bottle of red wine, and Heinz managed to find a loaf of rye bread. Mother cut that in small pieces to be served with dinner. Half the wine, however, she put away for the wounded boy. Then Mother said grace. I noticed there were tears in her eyes as she said the old familiar words, "Come, Jesus, be our guest." And as I looked around the table, I saw tears too, in the eyes of the battle-weary soldiers, boys again, some from America, some from Germany, all far from home. Just before midnight, Mother went to the doorstep and asked us to join her to look up at the star of Bethlehem. We all stood beside her except Harry, who was sleeping. For all of us during the moment of silence, looking at the brightest star in the heavens, the war was a distant, almost forgotten thing. Our private armistice continued next morning. Harry woke in the early hours and swallowed some broth that Mother fed him. With the dawn, it was apparent that he was becoming stronger. Mother now made him an invigorating drink from our one egg, the rest of Corporal's wine, and some sugar. Everyone else had oatmeal. Afterward, 2 poles and Mother's best tablecloth were fashioned into a stretcher for Harry. The German corporal then advised the Americans how to find their way back to their lines. Looking over Jim's map, the corporal pointed out a stream. "Continue along this creek," he said, "and you will find the First Army rebuilding its forces on its upper course." The medical student relayed the information in English. "Why don't we head for Monshaw?" Jim had the student asked. "9," the corporal exclaimed. "We've retaken Monshaw." Now, Mother gave them all back their weapons. "Be careful, boys," she said. "I want you to get home someday, where you belong. God bless you all." The German and American soldiers shook hands, and we watched them disappear in opposite direction. When I returned inside, Mother had brought out the old family Bible. I glanced over her shoulder. The book was open to the Christmas story, the birth in the manger, and how the wise men came from afar bearing their gifts. Her finger traced the last line from Matthew 2:21. They departed into their own country another way. This Christmas, boys and girls, I wish you and your family also return home in peace and have a peace of God with one another during the season. Let's focus on the gift of God more than the gifts. For God did not make us enemies, but sin entered the world and made us enemies with God and each other. But the greater thing about Jesus is that you can invite him into your heart anytime, and he will forgive you of your sins and never leave you or forsake you forever. Ask your parents if that is something you want to do. It is also a season for us to think about forgiving, loving, sharing, and honoring one another. Let's forget our desires and think about what we can do for our moms and dads, for our brothers and our sisters, and for others. Thank you, boys and girls, for listening to me. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Be safe, boys and girls, and I will see you on the next adventure. Bye-bye.